My sister tried to steal my inheritance for her husband and got a restraining order. My sister Brianna always thought she ran the show. At 27, she's married to Logan, a guy who's basically her arrogance in male form. Me? I'm 17, finishing high school, and living with Aunt Logan after Dad passed away. Brianna's too busy throwing tantrums to deal with real life. Now, Brianna and Aunt Logan have been enemies forever. Brianna's a total control freak. Growing up, she had to pick the games, choose the movie for movie night. Everything. If she didn't get her way, she'd unleash the most passive-aggressive tantrum you've ever seen. It usually worked, except on Aunt Logan. Aunt Logan never played Brianna's games, and it infuriated Brianna. I remember one time, Dad wasn't feeling well, and Aunt Logan came over to help. Brianna was supposed to be doing dishes, but she was texting Logan, pretending not to hear anything. Aunt Logan, being Aunt Logan, told Brianna to get off her butt and do her chores. Brianna rolled her eyes and mumbled, "You're not my mom." Aunt Logan didn't flinch. "No," she replied, "but I'm not your friend either, so get moving." Brianna cleaned the dishes, but she banged every plate and cup like she wanted to break them all. Afterward, she complained to me about Aunt Logan always being on her case. I said nothing, but Aunt Logan was right. The growing feud and Logan's true colors, Brianna's. Resentment towards Aunt Logan only grew as we got older. Aunt Logan would show up to help Dad with things Brianna should have been doing, driving him to appointments, helping with bills, making sure there was food. Brianna called it interfering, claiming Aunt Logan was trying to control the family. I called it stepping up. Brianna didn't want to see it that way because it made her look bad. She'd perfected her golden child act by the time Logan came into the picture. Logan adored her, and she loved having someone who thought she could do no wrong. Aunt Logan, of course, disliked Logan from the start. She called him arrogant and insincere, which he totally was. But Brianna didn't care. She pretended Logan was the best thing that ever happened to her, ignoring anyone who disagreed. Logan wasn't just arrogant, he was a jerk. Every time he came over, he'd say something sarcastic. If Dad cooked dinner, Logan would comment, "Well, this is interesting." When I talked about my medical school dreams, he'd laugh and say, "Better have a backup plan, kid. Not everyone's cut out for that." Brianna never stood up for me. She'd just chuckle along like Logan's harshness was a joke. Aunt Logan, on the other hand, didn't hold back. She'd shut Logan down with a cutting remark or just ignore him, which always irritated him. Brianna's relationship with Aunt Logan worsened after she married Logan. Brianna rarely attended family gatherings, and when she did, she'd leave abruptly after bickering with Aunt Logan. One Thanksgiving, Brianna went on a rampage about family members not respecting her marriage. Everyone knew she was talking about Aunt Logan, who simply shrugged and said, "Respect is earned, not demanded." Brianna stormed off, dragging Logan with her, and we didn't hear from her for months. Despite everything, Aunt Logan never stopped being there for me and Dad. She was more than an aunt. She was like a second parent to me, especially with Brianna. Often checked out, playing house with Logan. Aunt Logan helped with homework, drove me to school, and taught me how to cook something besides mac and cheese. She never made me feel like a burden, even during tough times with Dad. Brianna's animosity for Aunt Logan wasn't just about Aunt Logan, it was about Brianna. Aunt Logan saw Brianna for who she really was, self-centered, manipulative, and not as wonderful as she wanted everyone to believe. Brianna was frustrated because she couldn't control Aunt Logan the way she did everyone else. She couldn't flatter her, guilt-trip her, or twist her words to make herself look better. Instead of dealing with that, Brianna simply labeled Aunt Logan the enemy. Looking back, it's incredible Brianna held on to that grudge for so long. Even after marrying and moving out, she kept complaining about Aunt Logan. She'd say things like, "Why does she always have to be involved?" And "I can't stand how she treats me like a kid." Meanwhile, Aunt Logan was handling everything Brianna couldn't, like ensuring Dad's safety and keeping the family together. Dad's deterioration and Brianna's neglect, didn't realize how awful things would become between them until after Dad died. Brianna's anger evolved into something darker and more sinister. It wasn't just that they disliked Aunt Logan anymore. It was about trying to bring her down. And believe me, Brianna wasn't finished yet. When Dad's health started to decline, I knew things would get difficult. He'd had heart issues for as long as I could remember, but by my junior year, he couldn't hide it anymore. He'd get winded walking from the kitchen to the living room, and some days he struggled to get out of bed. It hurt me to see him like that. Dad was always the strong one, the person who could work late nights and still make pancakes on Sunday mornings. Aunt Logan stepped in immediately. She'd always been there, but suddenly things were different. She started coming over almost every day, helping with everything from doctor appointments to making sure Dad ate. Brianna was nowhere to be found. I tried to keep Brianna informed. I'd text her, call her, leave voicemails. Dad's not doing great, I'd say. You should come by and see him. She always had an excuse. Logan's been working late, or I've got so much going on at work. The line that really irritated me was, let me know if it gets serious. What the hell did she think was happening? Dad was severely ill, and she couldn't even spare an hour to see him. I'll never forget the night Dad collapsed in our living room. I was in the kitchen doing homework when I heard a loud crash. I rushed in and found him on the floor, clutching his chest, his face pale and sweaty. I panicked and called 911, then Aunt Logan. She arrived before the ambulance, her face tense with concern, but calm enough to keep me grounded. Brianna didn't pick up. I left her a message. Dad's going to the hospital. You need to come now. That hospital stay marked the beginning of the end. Dad was there for weeks, and every day I hoped Brianna would show up. She didn't. Aunt Logan and I were there every day, sitting by his bedside, holding his hand, making sure he was comfortable. The nurses knew us by name. Brianna didn't even bother calling until the second week. Even then, it wasn't to ask about Dad's well-being. It was to lament about how difficult her life had become because of Logan's health concerns. Now here's the deal with Logan. He has some chronic illness. I don't know much about it because we've never been close, but Brianna would bring it up whenever it was convenient for her. You don't understand how hard it is, she'd say. Logan's been so sick lately. I get it. It's terrible to be unwell. But she was using it as an excuse to ignore what was happening with her own father. The day Dad died, it was just me and Aunt Logan in the room. He had been in and out of consciousness all day, barely able to communicate. I held his hand, and Aunt Logan caressed his hair, assuring him it was okay to let go. When he finally stopped breathing, it felt like the entire world stopped. I don't think I've ever sobbed this hard in my life. Aunt Logan was with me the entire time, even when I completely broke down. Brianna had no idea until several hours later when I finally reached her. She acted like I was overreacting. "Why didn't you tell me it was this serious?" she said, her voice full of phony worry. I wanted to scream. I had been telling her for weeks. She simply didn't care enough to listen. Brianna didn't show up for the funeral either. She claimed Logan wasn't feeling well and she couldn't leave him alone. Aunt Logan and I handled everything, organizing the service, going through Dad's belongings, and ensuring everything was paid for. Brianna didn't lift a finger. She sent flowers and a bland condolence card, but that was all. I was enraged, but I lacked the energy to confront her. I was too preoccupied with adjusting to my father's absence. The will, the custody, and Brianna's manipulation. A few days after the burial, Aunt Logan sat me down to discuss the next steps. "Your dad left a will," she explained. "We'll need to go through it with the lawyer. I want you to know that whatever happens, I'm here for you." I nodded, not sure what she meant at the time. I wasn't even thinking about the will. I was just trying to get through each day without falling apart. When Brianna finally showed up, she pretended nothing had happened. She walked into the house, like it was any other day, completely forgetting that she had missed Dad's final moments and funeral. "So, what's going on with the will?" she inquired casually. Aunt Logan simply gave her a chilly look and replied, "We'll find out when we meet." "With the lawyer!" Brianna's only concern was money, and this was clear from the outset. She didn't ask about Dad's things, photos, or anything meaningful. She just wanted to know how much she was getting. It made me nauseous. Aunt Logan, on the other hand, was intent on ensuring that everything was done just as Dad had requested. She understood how much Dad wanted me to attend medical school, and she wasn't going to let Brianna spoil it. By the time we met with the lawyer, I was ready for the worst. Brianna had already stated that she didn't believe Aunt Logan had any right to be involved, but Dad's will indicated differently. Brianna and I were both entitled to half of the fortune, but because I wasn't yet 18, Aunt Logan was chosen as custodian of my portion. Brianna's expression when she heard that was pure hatred. She didn't say anything right away, but I could tell she was furious. Brianna pulled me aside after the meeting. "You know, Aunt Logan doesn't really understand us, right?" she asked, her voice smooth and artificial. "She's always been kind of cold, but we're family, and family should stick together. If you ever need help with the inheritance, just let me know." I didn't say anything, but I understood exactly what she was doing. She was trying to get me to support her because she couldn't stand Aunt Logan being in charge. Aunt Logan was having none of it. Later that day, she sat me down and said, "I know Brianna's going to try to manipulate you. Don't let her. This money is for your future, and your dad trusted me to protect it. I'm not going to let her take that away from you." I wasn't sure what Aunt Logan meant at the time, but I trusted her, and thank God I did, because Brianna was ready to turn this entire situation into a nightmare. The courtroom drama. The day we met with the lawyer to review Dad's will was one of the most embarrassing days of my life. It wasn't just the grief of losing Dad. It was knowing Brianna was going to make the entire situation a spectacle. She walked into the lawyer's office like she owned it, dressed in an expensive-looking outfit that screamed, "Look at me!" She didn't even greet Aunt Logan. She just looked at me and asked, "So, what's the deal? How's this going to work?" Mr. Bennett, the lawyer, was an older man whose glasses kept falling down his nose. He appeared to have seen it all, which was fortunate given Brianna's obvious objectives. He began by going over some legal issues, but Brianna was only concerned about the money. She interrupted him midway through to inquire, "Can you just skip to the part where we find out what we're getting?" Aunt Logan gave her a look that could have frozen lava, but Mr. Bennett simply nodded and kept things professional. "Your father's estate will be divided equally between the two of you," the man added, 50% to each of you. "However, since Jordan is still a minor, their share will be managed by Ms. Susan, as designated in the will, until they turn 18. I swear, you could have heard a pin drop. Brianna's smile froze on her face, and for a little while she stared at him as if she couldn't believe what she had heard. Then, in the fakest voice possible, she said, "Oh, that makes sense. Of course Aunt Logan would be in charge. She's always so responsible." I almost laughed because Brianna couldn't have sounded less sincere. Aunt Logan didn't say anything, but I could tell she was prepared for whatever foolishness Brianna was planning. Brianna cornered me in the parking lot following the meeting. "Hey, just so you know," she began, leaning in as if she was about to impart some important secret, "you don't have to listen to Aunt Logan about everything. I mean, she's great and all, but we're siblings. We should be making these decisions together." I just agreed, not wanting to start a battle right away, but inwardly I was furious. Brianna had spent years disparaging Aunt Logan, calling her domineering and overbearing, and now she was trying to pretend like they were best friends. It was almost embarrassingly transparent. Aunt Logan must have noticed the look on my face when I got into her car, because as soon as we moved away from the parking lot, she asked, "What did she say to you?" Just the usual, I said. She thinks we should be making decisions together. Aunt Logan groaned and gripped the steering wheel firmly. I knew this was coming. Brianna's never been one to let something like this go. Listen to me, Jordan. Your father trusted me to manage this money for a reason. He wanted you to have a future, to go to med school, to have the life he dreamed of for you. Don't let her guilt you into giving that up. I nodded. She was too headstrong to accept something like this without a battle. Brianna's desperate measures, Brianna, quickly revealed her true colors over the next few weeks. She began to visit Aunt Logan's house more frequently than ever before. This was the same Brianna who used to shun family gatherings because Aunt Logan would be present, and here she was, dropping by unexpectedly as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She'd send pastries or flowers, acting kind and charming, but it was so phony that it made my skin crawl. Family is so important, she murmured one day while sitting in Aunt Logan's living room, sipping tea, as if she cared about anything but herself. We've all been through so much, and I just think we need to stick together. You know Aunt Logan wasn't buying it. What do you need, Brianna? She inquired honestly. Brianna blinked, her phony smile sliding for a brief moment before she recovered. Nothing. Just wanted to check in. See how you two are doing. Is that so bad? Aunt Logan did not react, and the stillness was so thick that it could have been cut with a knife. Brianna eventually stopped pretending and got right to the subject. One afternoon, she arrived at Aunt Logan's house with tears in her eyes and a sob story concerning Logan's health. Apparently, his chronic illness had worsened, and he required surgery, expensive treatment that their insurance wouldn't fully cover. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death, Brianna remarked, wiping her eyes with a tissue. But we're desperate. Logan's been so sick, and I don't know what else to do. She turned to face me, her eyes wide and begging. Please, Jordan, just a small portion of your inheritance. It would mean everything to us. I froze. I wasn't sure what to say. Logan's condition was terrible, but this was my inheritance, my future. I'd been saving it for medical school and the life my father intended for me. Giving it to Brianna would mean tossing everything away. Aunt Logan moved in before I could answer. That money is for Jordan, Brianna, she stated firmly. It's not for you, and it's not for Logan. Your father made that very clear in his will. Brianna's face contorted, and her phony sweetness vanished in an instant. You've always hated me, she exclaimed. You've been against me since we were kids. This isn't about Dad's wishes. It's about you trying to control everything like you always do. Aunt Logan didn't even flinch. Believe whatever you want, Brianna, she explained quietly. But that money isn't going anywhere. Brianna went out and slammed the door behind her. I assumed that was the end of it, but I should have known better. Brianna was not done. Definitely not. The escalation and the legal battle. I figured Brianna storming out of Aunt Logan's house would be the last I heard from her, but I was mistaken. Brianna doesn't give up easy, especially when she believes she has been wronged. Brianna can't handle not being in control. It eats away at her. And when she doesn't get her way, she goes all out, cranking up the drama to the highest level. What surprised me was how far she was willing to go. It started simple, as it often does for Brianna. She texted me a number of times the day after she left Aunt Logan's, acting calm and sensible. Hey, I know things got heated yesterday, she sent in an email. I just want you to think about what I said. Logan's surgery isn't optional. It's life or death. We're family, and I know Dad would want you to help. I dismissed it at first. I didn't want to engage, since I knew it wouldn't end well, but Brianna doesn't accept quiet as an answer. The next day, she returned to Aunt Logan's, house uninvited. I was in my room when I heard the doorbell, followed by Brianna's excessively loud and lovely voice. I want to talk with Jordan, Brianna responded, attempting to appear innocent. Whatever you have to say, you can say it from the porch, Aunt Logan told her. I looked through my window and saw Brianna standing there, carrying a folder as if she was preparing to give a big presentation. Fine, she said, throwing her hair over her shoulder. I brought some information about Logan's condition. I thought maybe if you both understood how serious this is, you'd reconsider. Aunt Logan did not say anything. She simply crossed her arms and waited. Brianna took that as a hint to begin her pitch. Logan has been dealing with this for years, she explained, removing documents from her folder and holding them up as if they were evidence. But now it's gotten to the point where he can't function without surgery. The doctors say it's critical. She went on for a long time, explaining how expensive the treatment was and how their insurance wouldn't cover everything. We've already put our savings into this, she continued, her voice cracking. But it's not enough. I'm not asking for a handout. I'm asking for help. Just a small portion of the inheritance. It's sitting there unused, and Logan doesn't have time to wait. Aunt Logan didn't move. Brianna, I understand that this is hard for you, but your father left that money for Jordan. It's not up for discussion, she told me. Brianna's expression shifted suddenly. The phony sadness vanished, replaced by pure rage. You're unbelievable, she exclaimed. How can you stand there and act like this is about Dad's wishes? You've always hated me. You're just using this as an excuse to punish me. That's enough, Aunt Logan murmured, her tone frigid. You can leave now. Brianna did not argue. She stormed away, slamming the gate behind her, but I knew it was not over. A few days later, Brianna took a new strategy. She started texting me, directly, skipping Aunt Logan entirely. Initially, it was more guilt-tripping. I can't believe you're letting Aunt Logan control your decisions like this, the message said. You're old enough to think for yourself. When that didn't work, she changed tactics. You know Logan has always supported you, right? She said in response. He was the one who said you could totally get into med school. He believes in you. I can't believe you're turning your back on him now. That one had me laughing aloud. Logan, the guy who insulted me for wanting to be a doctor, has suddenly come to believe in me? Yeah, right. I didn't answer, but Brianna didn't stop. The texts continued, each one more urgent than the previous. Then came the photograph. Logan was pictured resting in a hospital bed, hooked up to a monitor. Brianna captioned this. This is what you're ignoring. This is what you're letting happen. I presented it to Aunt Logan, who simply shook her head. She's trying to manipulate you, she said. Don't fall for it. When the texts failed, Brianna intensified. Aunt Logan received a call one evening from someone she hadn't spoken to in years, our cousin, Sophie. Brianna had supposedly approached her with a sob story about Aunt Logan hoarding my money and refusing to help a dying man. Sophie called Aunt Logan to get her side of the story, and when Aunt Logan revealed what was actually going on, Sophie was outraged. She tried to make me feel bad for not stepping up to help, she asked. What's wrong with her? It wasn't only Sophie. Brianna spent the next week reaching out to other family members, attempting to mobilize them against Aunt Logan. She painted Aunt Logan as a villain, keeping me under her control and refusing to help him out of anger. Most people saw through her, but a few fell for it and called Aunt Logan to express their concern. I couldn't believe Brianna was willing to go so far. It wasn't just about money anymore. It was about winning. Brianna wanted to shatter Aunt Logan, to force her to cave and give in so she could feel in control. The breaking point occurred when Brianna arrived at Aunt Logan's house with a lawyer. She didn't warn us or call ahead. She just showed up and demanded to speak. Aunt Logan answered the door but refused to let Brianna in. What do you want now? She inquired, annoyed. Brianna motioned to the lawyer beside her. I'm filing a legal petition, she explained, her tone arrogant. You've been manipulating Jordan and mishandling the inheritance. I'm asking the court to remove you as custodian and appoint me instead. Aunt Logan didn't even blink. Good luck, With that, she said, slamming the door in her face. After that, it was official. Brianna wasn't simply trying to guilt me into giving her the money, she attempted to seize it by force. The court date was established, and Aunt Logan and I began preparing with our lawyer, Mr. Bennett. Brianna believed she had the upper hand, but she had no idea how much evidence we had against her. She'd picked the wrong fight, and she was about to learn the hard way. The verdict and the restraining order. When the court date was set, it seemed like the quiet before the storm. Brianna's legal petition accused Aunt Logan of manipulating me, misusing the bequest, and attempting to dominate my life for her own gain. It was all nonsense, but Brianna was hoping she could spin her story convincingly enough to persuade the court. If she succeeded, the court would appoint her as my guardian, giving her power over my inheritance until I was 18. She wasn't asking for a portion of the money. She wanted it all. Aunt Logan was not rattled. She had seen enough of Brianna's games over the years to know how to remain calm under pressure. We worked carefully with our lawyer, Mr. Bennett, to gather as much information as possible to prove Brianna's objectives. Brianna came to court, accompanied by her lawyer and Logan. He appeared out of place, sitting in the rear of the courtroom with a scowl on his face, as if he would rather be somewhere else. Brianna, on the other hand, was totally in her element. She strolled in as if she were the hero of some dramatic story, exuding faux confidence and exaggerated concern. Her lawyer began by portraying her as a caring sister who only wanted the best for me. "My client's sole intention is to protect her brother," the lawyer explained. "She is deeply concerned about the influence Ms. Susan has over him and believes that the inheritance is not being managed in his best interest." I could feel my blood boiling as I listened. Brianna hadn't cared about me or my father in years, and now she pretended to be my rescuer. Aunt Logan must have sensed my tightened fists because she gave me a gentle nudge, quietly instructing me to be calm. When it was our turn, Mr. Bennett systematically destroyed Brianna's thesis. He began with the bank records, which clearly demonstrated that Aunt Logan had not touched a single cent of my inheritance. "The funds are held in a custodial account, as specified in the will," Mr. Bennett stated. "There is no evidence of mismanagement or improper influence." Then came the bit that radically changed the narrative: Brianna's bank records. Mr. Bennett had submitted a request for them as part of the lawsuit, and the results were exactly as expected. Brianna had gone through half of her fortune in just 6 months. There were fees for a brand new SUV, high-end kitchen items, luxury trips, and numerous other superfluous expenses. It provided a clear picture of someone who was financially reckless and desperate. Finally, Mr. Bennett showed the text messages and voicemails Brianna had sent me during the previous few weeks. The court listened as her voice resonated across the room, appealing, demanding, and even threatening. "You're sitting on all this money while my husband is dying," one voicemail stated. "If you don't help, you're going to regret it." The judge's expression darkened as the evidence accumulated. Brianna trembled in her seat, losing confidence with each passing minute. When it was my turn to speak, I rose and took a deep breath. This was my opportunity to reveal the truth, and I was not going to waste it. "Your Honor," I said, "this case isn't about protecting me or my inheritance. It's about my sister refusing to take responsibility for her own choices. Brianna received the exact same inheritance I did, half of everything my dad worked his whole life to leave us. She spent her share on luxury items and vacations, and now she's trying to take what's left of mine to fix her mistakes." I looked across at Brianna, who was staring at me with a mixture of rage and amazement, but I didn't stop. Over the past few weeks, Brianna has harassed me with messages, tried to guilt me into giving her money, and even involved other family members in an attempt to pressure me. She's not here to protect me. She's here because she wants control. My aunt, on the other hand, has done nothing but support me. She's been there every step of the way, making sure I stay on track for med school and honoring my dad's wishes. If it weren't for her, I wouldn't even be here today. I sat down, my hands trembling slightly, and I felt a weight fall off my shoulders. I had spoken everything I needed to say, and there was no going back. When Brianna was given the opportunity to speak, she expanded on her sob story. "I've always cared about my brother," she remarked, with tears running down her cheeks. "I just want what's best for him. Logan's surgery is life or death, and I thought this family could come together to help. I didn't expect this kind of hostility." It was so phony that it made my skin crawl. Brianna had spent years treating Aunt Logan as an enemy, and now she was attempting to portray herself as the victim. But the evidence was stacked against her, and the court was clearly not believing it. After evaluating everything, the judge issued his decision. "The evidence clearly shows that Ms. Susan has acted responsibly in her role as custodian of the inheritance. Furthermore, the petitioner's financial history and personal communications reveal a motive that is self-serving rather than protective of the respondent's interests. The petition is dismissed." Brianna's face turned bright crimson, and her jaw tightened so hard I feared she'd shatter a tooth. But the judge was not done. "This court will also investigate whether the petitioner's claims and submitted evidence constitute perjury or fraud. If found guilty, there would be consequences. After a review, she was found guilty of filing false claims and attempting to conduct fraud. The ramifications hit her hard. They penalized her for wasting court resources, ordered her to attend treatment, to address her deceptive behavior, and issued a restraining order to keep her away from me and my aunt. I could hardly control my relief. Aunt Logan gently squeezed my shoulder, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. Brianna tried to catch up with us as we exited the courthouse, but Aunt Logan stopped her with a single, "Look." "We're done here," she stated firmly. Brianna paused in her tracks, her hands balled into fists, but she said nothing. She knew she had lost. Logan remained silent the entire time, undoubtedly recognizing he couldn't speak his way out of this situation. Brianna muttered angrily under her breath as they went, but I didn't care what she had to say. The fight was finished, and we had triumphed. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt like I regained control of my life. Aunt Logan and I had held our ground, and Brianna's plans had failed horribly. She believed she could use me and everyone else to obtain what she wanted, but in the end, she had just shown herself for who she truly was. And now she couldn't touch me or my future.